You know, something really strange is happening deep within the Himalayas, one of the most important ecosystems on the entire planet. As the world gets warmer, our satellites are showing us a trend that seems to defy logic. The mountains are actually getting greener. This just shouldn't be happening. So today, we're going to unpack the science and solve the Himalayan greening paradox.
Okay, first things first, let's just take a moment to appreciate where we are. The Northeast Himalayas. This place is an absolute ecological treasure chest. It's home to an incredible 50% of all of India's plant species. It also acts as this massive carbon sink, playing a huge role in regulating the climate for the whole region. It's a system we absolutely cannot afford to misunderstand.
And that brings us right to the heart of the history. You'd think, right, that rising temperatures would put a ton of stress on a delicate, high-altitude ecosystem like this. But instead, we're seeing more life, more lush vegetation. So what is really going on here?
Now, this slide lets you see the paradox with your own two eyes. Don't worry about all the little details, just focus on two key maps here. Look at the one on the left showing temperature trends. That dark brown color pretty much everywhere. That shows a consistent warming trend. Now, look at the map on the right showing vegetation. That teal color, that's telling us that the plant life is actually increasing. So you've got more warmth and more green happening at the exact same time. The evidence is clear, but the reason why? Well, that's the real puzzle.
So, to solve this, scientists are using this incredible toolkit, basically looking at 2 decades of data from space to see not just what's happening, but to figure out the why.
To really get this, we need to understand that not all green is created equal. Scientists measure it in 2 key ways. On the left, you've got canopy greenness, which is basically how lush and green the vegetation looks from a satellite. But then on the right, they also measure carbon productivity, or GPP. That tells us how hard those plants are actually working to suck up carbon from the atmosphere. So you can think of it as appearance versus actual performance.
And their process is super methodical. First, they gather all the satellite and climate data they can get their hands on. Then, they calculate those changes in both greenness and productivity over 20 years. And finally, they use some really advanced statistics to find the hidden connections between the climate and what the plants are doing.
And this whole process led them to the first major clue. They started to figure out the main forces that are really pulling the strings on this entire ecosystem.
And it turns out, it really boils down to 2 major things that explain over 74% of all the changes they're seeing. The first, and the biggest one, is what they call the hydrothermal factor, which is just a way of saying the combined effects of water and warmth. The second one is the radiation productivity factor, which is all about sunlight and energy. These are like the 2 main control knobs for the whole region.
And this chart, I know it looks a little complicated, but this is how they confirmed it. Just focus on those arrows in the main circle. See how the arrows for temperature, soil moisture, and rainfall are all kind of clustered together, pointing in a similar direction? That's the data itself telling us that they all act together, like a single powerful water and warmth force. So we've identified the key players, but we still don't know the exact roles they're playing.
And this is where the whole mystery finally starts to unravel. The answer isn't just one single thing. It's actually a dynamic story that changes pretty dramatically with the seasons. Let's dig into the data and see how this all builds.
Okay, first up, the pre-monsoon season, from about March to May. On these charts, the farther a variable is to the right, the bigger its impact. And as you can see, temperature and evaporation are the clear leaders here. So in the spring, it's the warmth that's really the trigger that wakes everything up and kicks off the growing season.
But then the monsoon arrives, and boom, the drivers completely shift. From June to September, look at these charts again. Temperature, suddenly not nearly as important. The new leaders, way over on the right, are rainfall and soil moisture. The whole system becomes completely dominated by water.
Now, after the rains pass, in October and November, the lead role changes yet again. Now there's plenty of moisture left over in the ground, so temperature pushes right back to the front of the pack, becoming a major driver once more. It's working together with all that leftover water to give the plants one last productivity boost before winter sets in.
And finally, we get to the cool, dry winter, and a totally new driver takes the stage. Check it out. A variable called PAR, which is just a fancy science term for sunlight, is now the leading factor. When water and warmth are both pretty scarce, it's really the amount of solar energy that's running the show.
So the solution to the whole paradox is this beautiful, intricate dance. The greening isn't caused by just one thing. It's a seasonal handover, a relay race between different climate drivers. Each one takes the lead at the exact right time, creating this incredibly complex but also resilient pattern.
But, figuring this all out isn't just a fun academic puzzle. Understanding this delicate balance has some really profound implications for the future of this vital region.
So here's the most important takeaway. This research reveals a kind of paradox within the paradox. On one hand, the ecosystem has the surprising ability to bounce back and adapt. But on the other hand, it's also extremely sensitive. Even small shifts in when the monsoon arrives or how fast things warm up could throw this entire dance out of rhythm. And that has a direct impact on water security for millions of people and shows exactly why this kind of advanced satellite monitoring is so absolutely essential.
And the urgency here is only growing. This graph shows us the vegetation greenness over the last 20 years. See that dip and then that really sharp upward swing right after the year 2010? That acceleration tells us that these complex climate interactions are actually getting stronger. They're intensifying, which makes our need to understand them more critical than ever before.
Which leaves us with one final critical question. For now, the Himalayas are adapting. They're showing this incredible resilience. But it all hinges on a very precise seasonal rhythm. As our climate continues to change, and at an ever faster pace, you have to wonder, how long can this delicate dance last before the music stops?